All right, I'm going to start this by simply saying we are all people of color. Let's head over to the swamp and I'll explain. Testing, 1, 2. Is this thing even on? Hello, hello?
Who the hell are you supposed to be?
Hey, I'm just trying to be a professional. Isn't this what the big boys do?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I don't need all this stupid shit. Besides, I like it back here in the swamp. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the swamp. Okay, I was doing these man on the street interviews the other day with an assortment of so-called people of color up at my local Walmarts. Well, that didn't go over so well, but that's a whole nother video. So I was asking questions like, what color is snow? And what color is milk? Or what are the 3 colors in an American flag? And then I'd point to a white car driving by and say, well, what color is that car? Oh, which reminds me, my wife Pam and I went to buy a new car last week, and the dealer asked us if we wanted a car of color or a white one. And the part of the lot had nothing but all the colored cars, and another lot had all the white ones.
That's not true. You're so full of shit sometimes.
Okay, yeah, I made that last part up. But you get my point. I was just trying to get everyone to acknowledge that white is a color. And of course, everyone agreed. So, if everybody agrees that white is a color, then why aren't they included as people of color? I guess it's a color for everything on the planet except people. Well, here's a little history on the term people of color. All right, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and in those days the term colored people was pretty much the acceptable term for blacks, but it was only referring to black people. All the other so-called people of color had their own terms. I won't go into those. Well, there was this famous black comedian from that era. His name was Dick Gregory. He was also a big activist in the civil rights movement and hung around with guys like Martin Luther King. And, anyways, I saw him do a comedy routine on TV, and basically what he said was that they want to be called black. He talked about the word Negro, which was the other acceptable term at that time, and how it just meant black in Spanish, and since we don't speak Spanish, and then he said, and I quote, 'cause for some reason this really stuck in my head. He said, if you keep calling us colored people, we're going to start calling you clear people. And I thought that was pretty good and true. Anything that's not clear or transparent has to be some color. Well, that's the simplified real history of how and when it went from colored to black. And I never heard that term used again until sometime in the 2000s. Only now they say it backwards. And now it includes every race on the planet except white people. I mean, talk about divisive. And we all know how united all the people of color are. The Arabs and the Hispanics, they're like 2 peas in a pod, both with the same goals and aspirations. And the Chinese and the blacks in Africa, well, they're like kindred spirits or brothers in arms. Yeah, right. The only thing all these races have in common is their desire to leave their shithole countries to live in a white country. I'm not even sure if by not including us crackers as people of color, are they putting us up on a pedestal so they can look up to us, or are they trying to put us down on the ground so they can trample down on us? Personally, I don't give a shit either way, because most of us never even consider or think about what color we are. And nor do we care what color anybody else is. We mostly judge people by how they act. The content of their character, not the color of their skin. Hey, that's pretty good. I ought to patent that line.
Too late. Martin Luther King already said it.
Are you sure? Though somebody got it backwards, because they literally do the exact opposite. This white guilt or white shame bullshit was started by white bleeding heart liberals thinking they can somehow make amends for something they didn't even do. You know, and there's obviously enough dumbass white people out there to blindly follow along, you know, as if all the other races have such a squeaky clean past. You know, every race on the planet has slaves at one time or another, and every race on the planet had been enslaved at one time or another. In fact, it still goes on today worldwide. You know, and besides slavery, let's look at some of the other deeds done by other races throughout history. Let's see. China murdered over 50 million of their own people during their communist revolution. And how about the Spanish people? Well, you know, why do you think they speak Spanish in Mexico and all of Central America and most of South America? Well, it's because the Spaniards did the exact same thing we did in America. You know, did you ever hear of the conquistadors? Ask the Mayans or the Aztecs about them. Oh, you can't, because the Spanish people genocided them. You know, and the blacks in Africa, they're the ones who captured their own people to sell to the slave traders. You know, I could go on with every race, but I'm sure you get my point. Now, let me explain how colors actually work. You know, color is just the reflection of light on an object. And white is actually the reflection of every color in the rainbow. That's why when you shine a white light into a prism, it reflects the entire color spectrum or a rainbow. And black is just the opposite. It's actually a total lack of any color at all. But we all know there really aren't any white people or black people. We're all just different shades of brown. You know, black being the darkest brown and whites being the lightest shade of brown. You know, and every other race falls somewhere in between. And each race has multiple shades of color within their own particular race. You know, that's why I say we're all people of color. All right, that term African American is just downright stupid and insulting to a lot of people. You know, it makes absolutely no sense at all. I mean, Elon Musk is from Africa. Does that make him African American? Or how about the Egyptians? Or the Libyans, or the Moroccans of America? You know, all of their countries are in Africa too, but we don't call them African Americans. I'm just saying. Okay, here's this week's stupid shit off the top of my head. You know, about this DEI bullshit, which Trump is putting an end to, thank God. You know, when you teach kids to hate white people, what do you think you're telling all the millions of kids from mixed race parents? You know, you're teaching them that one of their parents are good, but the white parent is evil. You know, it just goes to show you how much they really hate the family unit. Well, that's about it. Hope you liked what I said. Any comments or questions, you know what to do. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Until next time, see you at the swamp.